set out years ago to collect and write the history of these Aborigines. I went into the mountains with them, gained their confidence and their secrets connected with their laws.
Thomas Dick was an oyster farmer and amateur scientist who lived in Port Macquarie on the north coast of New South Wales around the turn of the century.
Eventually took up photography and befriended the Aboriginal people.
I was fortunate, for some of the old men were most intelligent and they recognised that their race was run, as it were, so they gave me the history of their race.
Thomas Dick's photographs, taken over almost 2 decades, beginning in 1910, are considered gems of history.
These are unique treasures. These are treasures where they can see their ancestors, their known family members undertaking cultural activities and events, and can see the pride in them. And they are really the crown jewels of the Port Macquarie area for Aboriginal people.
At the time these photos were taken, the Aboriginal community living around Port Macquarie wore European clothes. But Thomas Dick wanted to document them in a historical perspective.
He became very close to them, trekked everywhere with them, and got them to agree to take off their European clothes and wander around as their ancestors did.
His motivation, I believe, was that of a historian. He wanted to know what was there before, and he wanted to preserve a lot of what he saw around him.
The Australian Museum holds the largest number of his photographs, which are now dispersed in collections in museums across Australia and Britain.
We've got 138 plates out of a possible 500 that we think that were in the original collection. These were donated to the museum in 1940s by the Dick family after Thomas Dick's death.
Hi Johnson, what do we got? What's in here? For a long time, it was thought all of Thomas Dick's photos had been found.
Photographs that have been taken from the glass plates.
But now there's been a new discovery. So what's on these ones? What are we looking at here? From the back of a shed in a rusty tin box, hundreds of glass slides and lantern slides showing Port Macquarie in its early days as a penal settlement, and more photos of Aboriginal families from the area.
There's one glass plate that shows a group of Aboriginals in a cave, which I've never seen before. There's even one of a group of Aboriginals with a box camera.
John Dick came across these original glass plates when he set out to write a book about a grandfather he has only come to know in recent years.
I'm just sorry it took so long for me to come to know him through reading and research. Because my father never spoke about it, my uncle never spoke about it.
There was a reason for the silence. Thomas Dick's close relationship with the local Aboriginal community was frowned upon.
Tom was unfortunately not universally understood or loved by white people of Port Macquarie in particular. There weren't many in Port Macquarie who were prepared to give time to those who were sympathetic with the plight of the Aborigines.
Even today, his photos continue to take a back seat in the town he so carefully reproduced.
These two photos here are the only ones on show at this museum.
It's Port Macquarie's preoccupation with its short colonial history that rankles the descendants of these photographs.
There's very few publications that relate to the history of Port Macquarie that give any significant detail in relation to Aboriginal people. And yet our peoples have been here for hundreds of thousands of years. And the penal settlement itself was only here for 10 years.
John Heath's grandmother was one of Thomas Dick's subjects. He spent years trying to identify the people in these photos and their descendants. The woman in the canoe is his grandmother.
In the foreground is Peter Budge, And then the middle ground is Charlie Murray. And the third person, in his late teens by the look of it, I have not been able to identify. As can be seen from the surviving images, he tried to capture our people in a number of different settings.
In some instances, little has changed. It's pretty much a match-up, isn't it?
Oh, it's spot on. Going up on to the Grand Heads, it's so easy to recall the events of him taking the photographs there because it's so obvious.
Other locations are much harder to find.
Sites like this, to some degree, take a little bit more working out because the real changes to the environment.
It's taken decades, but now there's an understanding of what Thomas Dick was doing and just how he and the subjects of his photos should be remembered. How do you want him remembered?
As a wonderful photographer of everything around the Hastings and Port Macquarie.
I think that the subjects of the photographs, all of our families, were proud. They portrayed their proudness in their Aboriginality, and we even today are still proud of being able to carry out a lot of our traditional practices. So those skills that were handed down, it does give one pride in oneself.